Welcome to a review of Detective Pikachu, the movie that came out a month ago, that I saw a month ago and didn't review. Better late than never, I suppose. I mean, these review videos get pretty good views no matter when I upload them. By pretty good, I mean not zero. I'm over here in a slightly different spot in my room because, I need to charge my phone, but I also need to use it to record quick thoughts right now because I actually feel up to doing it. I plan to talk about this a little bit more in an update video that I may have already uploaded by now, I'm not sure, but for certain reasons, I don't know, it takes me, like, I have to get to the point where I'm, like, ready to record, like, my face or whatever, for videos, so I have to be in the right mood, and I was gonna use my computer a little bit and then do it, but my computer's doing the classic Windows updates, so might as well just do this now. Here's a little. So I saw Detective Pikachu about a month ago with some bros, my friends Mitchell, Jack, and Aiden. We all went and saw it together. I had a really good time. Part of it was, with my friends, but, like, in the movie theaters, you're not talking that much. At least you shouldn't be. So, like, the movie was good on its own merits. I went in I had already read or heard some basic reviews criticizing usually the plot, the acting, and and watching it, I don't know, I kind of agreed with most of those. It's a pretty basic plot. My friend Jack was this is the disadvantage for having to awkwardly hold the phone while it's charging. My friend Jack was sitting 2 seats down from me, Mitchell was sitting next to me, and Jack was just, I figured out partway through the movie, because they were whispering to each other, that Jack was predicting all the plot points, trying to predict all the mystery plot points, and he, got every one of them, and I don't know, I guess him and Mitchell started doing a little dance every time he got one right. So I would look over there during a scene, and they'd be like, and I'd be like, what are you, and be like, what are they doing? And then after the movie, they're like, oh yeah, I kind of could get the vibe from what they were whispering, that he was trying to predict stuff, and that it was working. I wasn't trying so hard to predict things, but it is fairly predictable storyline. I mean, it's ultimately for kids. Like, the plot, it felt very okay, this is kind of your standard movie plot. I didn't predict a ton of things because I wasn't actively trying to predict things, but I did predict who the bad guy was pretty much immediately as soon as he came on screen. I'm like, that's going to be the big twist bad guy. And then every time he showed up, I was like, yep. That's the bad guy. So, I mean, if you've ever seen, a mystery movie like this before, it might be obvious to you from the very first scene he appears. But that wasn't really a detractor to the movie. I mean, I would have liked to maybe see something a little bit more mysterious, and there certainly were some weird plot conveniences, they show this in the trailer, so it's not that much of a spoiler. The frickin' Windows updates. This is off topic, but it did the Windows updates, and then it said unable to install updates, and then it did undoing changes for 5 minutes, and now it's undoing more changes. What? Just let me turn on my computer. This wouldn't happen if Windows didn't. If Windows just asked me when I wanted to do updates. Whatever. This is not the point. Where was I? Oh yeah, there's some plot conveniences, so there's the scene in the trailer that you see where it's his dad in his dad's car crash. They show that scene 3 or 4 different times. Some of those times quickly in a row, and each time it's not like he's discovering new things about that scene, really. He's just being told. The first guy he talks to tells him, oh yeah, your father died in that crash. Then the next guy says, no, he didn't. Here's some more information. And then the next guy says, here's some more information. And the whole idea of how these characters even necessarily know the information is a little bit fuzzy. So it just kind of feels like he's getting these convenient plot conveniences to explain to him what happened at his father's crash site without him ever actually going there. I don't think he ever visits the crash site. I think Pikachu stumbles upon it at one point, but he's not with the main character. But I honestly don't remember. It's what happens when you wait a month to review something. So there's weird stuff like that. But ultimately, I don't know. I was there for the world and like the characters and the Pokemon, which is funny because I never really been all that interested in the Pokemon games, never played them, never really had a desire to play them. But something about the Detective Pikachu world, I think putting it in this like city where humans and Pokemon are mingling and they're not just like fun monsters for the kiddos to catch, just made it more interesting to me. Made the world more like gripping. I told my brothers to be quiet out there, but they're not. So if you hear some weird background shouting, that's just that. I'm not going to get up and go tell them to be quiet again. But, and when it comes to that aspect, the world and integrating these Pokemon, oh my gosh, they succeed so well. There's all these fun little, like, I mean, I don't know all the Pokemon, so I'm not picking them out like, oh, that's Gardalax. But, like, it was still fun to see how these different Pokemon were doing different things. A lot of it was in the trailers, but it was still really entertaining, and just to see that, I like, even when I can predict a mystery story, I usually like a good mystery story. There have been exceptions. I was not big on Zootopia, and that was kind of mystery story. I'd say Detective Pikachu is probably only slightly more complex in its mystery plot than Zootopia. Like, that's about the level we're talking. But I found the world carried it for me. It's not that the plot was bad, but it's just like, that's not going to sell the movie at all, so the world had to deliver, and it really delivered. There were so many cool things they did with the Pokemon. There's one scene, they showed in the trailers where the ground is rising, and they're like, whoa, there's a world, and it's like the ground's like closing in on them. I'm not going to spoil it, but when I found out what was causing that ground movement, I, like, gasped out loud in the theater. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's so cool. And that was just a lot of it. All the Pokemon stuff was just so cool. Like, I don't know, it made me feel like a kid again. I mean, not really, because I didn't play Pokemon as a kid, so I have no attachment to it, but it was just like, it was cool on its own merits, and I can't even imagine how cool it would be as a Pokemon fan, or as a kid who's a Pokemon fan. Like, it's cool stuff. What else? Oh yeah, the characters were cool. I really liked the dynamic between Pikachu and, what was his name? Tim, is that the kid's name? The one played by Justice Smith, the human character. I thought Tim was a pretty interesting character, though he sort of had this backstory where he like wasn't interested in his family. It was there wasn't a lot of subtlety to the backstory. There were a few like slow moments, but it was pretty like spelled out. And ultimately, that was just the movie felt like it was not like this is only fun if you're a kid, but definitely like this is how the movie's gonna definitely aimed so that kids could follow every beat of it, if that makes sense. Whether it be the mystery or the character arcs or whatever. My friends were saying they didn't really like the acting from the main guy. I thought he was fine. He was playing a straight man, so that helps. He was playing the straight man to the humorous Detective Pikachu character, and so I thought he was. There wasn't that much that he had to do, but in the scenes where he had to get emotional and like be upset about his dad dying or his mom who died when he was a kid, that kind of thing, like I bought it. I was sold. I didn't really think his acting was bad at all. The girl character, on the other hand, the one that so she's this young like reporter. She's not really a reporter. She's kind of like the assistant of another reporter. Like, get me coffee kind of assistant. And I couldn't tell how old these characters were supposed to be, because, like, her character, she seemed like she could have been in high school. Like, even just the way they wrote her personality. Like, I think at minimum her character is like 20, but she's just kind of immature for a 20-year-old, I guess. But it's like she really wants to be a reporter. And then the boy, the main guy, see, I think he was clearly supposed to be around the same age as her, but like some of the ways they wrote, like in the beginning he mentions that he's like working as an insurance salesman, and I'm like, is that something you do when you're at age 20? I don't really get it. And then it doesn't help that the actors also looked like they could be either 18 or 25, like they looked like they could be anywhere within a like 16 to 26, like how am I supposed to know how old they're supposed to be? And it kind of took me out of it a little bit, like how far are these people into adulthood? The girl certainly didn't seem very far into adulthood, although that might have just been the bad acting. The first scene she showed up, oh my god, I feel like the way they negated the bad acting was to set the bar so low that anything else she did would seem better. The first scene she shows up, he actually runs into her before he even finds Detective Pikachu, which I thought was odd. And she's like asking him questions because she's like investigating how his dad died, and he's like, I don't know anything, I just got here. Like, I literally just got here. And her and her Psyduck are like, and she's like really in his face. They do that standard thing where she's like all gung-ho, I'm a reporter, I'm gonna be a reporter, I'm so cool, and I'm investigating and I'm gonna get the big scoop. And it just comes across as so hokey and terrible, and I'm sitting there watching it and thinking, oh god, is this what she's gonna be like for the rest of the movie? Thankfully she chills out. Hold on. No dribbling the basketball in the house! I have a major pet peeve about dribbling basketballs in the house. They like to do that. They're like taking the ball outside and they just start dribbling it on the floor. I'm like, no! Wooden inside floor was not made to be dribbled on. Sorry. I had to stop and go tell my brother to stop doing that. Where was I? Oh yeah, the scene was so hokey. I'm like, oh god, is she gonna be like that the whole time? And thankfully she like dials it back a bit after that. So her acting wasn't good, but it wasn't like actively irritating anymore. Like it was in that first scene. I liked her Psyduck way better than her. All it does is just go Psyduck, Psyduck, and they've got this thing where like apparently, I guess this is probably a thing from the games, but it creates like an explosion thing if it gets a headache. So they're all like trying to keep it calm, and it's just funny because it's like in different scenes it'll be like freaking out, and it'll be like Psyduck, 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 and like starts talking fast, or they're running away from the bad guys and just like Psyduck, 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 and they're like calm. The whole movie they have to keep this Psyduck calm. I thought it was funny. It's my kind of simple humor. Speaking of simple humor, there's one great bit in the fighting arena scene that they show in the trailers where the guy running the fight does like this weird thing with his hands. He's like, hold on, I'm trying to stand this up so I can do it. I'm holding it up with my leg. He's like, ah! In the middle of the battle, he's like, ah! And me and Jack both just started laughing at that, because that's the kind of stupid stuff I love. And the Psyduck thing was a similar energy. Like, just kind of like it just kept saying Psyduck over and over again at different, like you could hear the different levels of anxiety in its voice, and it was just funny. I thought it was really funny. There's a lot of good comedy in this movie. The Mr. Mime scene's quite the funny thing. How they solve that dilemma is funny, and they didn't show that in the trailers. The interaction between Detective Pikachu and Justice Smith is funny, and yeah, of course Ryan Reynolds is funny, and he delivers the lines pretty well. I think most of the jokes land. Trying to think, there's some cool, they do some cool stuff with like Ditto Pokemon. I'm not going to say anything more about that. They do some cool stuff with the Pikachu fight scenes. Ultimately, I don't know, there were parts of it that were I thought the finale, the closing battle was kind of underwhelming because it wasn't very battle-ish. The trailers made it look like it'd be a lot more of a like a winding battle, but it was kind of it kind of just like the bad guy did a big event, then he did a short fight, then he got beat, and that was it. I thought there was sort of I'm trying to be as vague as possible, but there were sort of two fights going on in the ending scene, and I thought the fight with the big Mewtwo, yeah, he was in the trailer, so I'm gonna say it. I thought the Mewtwo fight was less interesting than the other fight that was going on, which was kind of weird. And ultimately, it kind of does that thing where, like, two groups of characters solve the mystery at the same time, but then neither group really gets to inform the other group of it because they're separated. I feel like movies and shows do that a lot, and they, like, use that as a way to reveal the audience the mystery just before something bad happens, rather than a way to, like, unite the characters. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing that movies and TV shows do, and I did notice that in the ending. So ultimately, like, I just really, it's a very feel-good movie, you know? I got kind of similar vibes with it, like, when I saw Mary Poppins Returns. Mary Poppins Returns wasn't actually that good. It was probably the best of the Disney remake sequels, whatever, but you know, it was very, very derivative of the original Mary Poppins. And this movie's kind of derivative of other mystery movies. I use Zootopia as a comparison. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Who Framed Roger Rabbit's definitely a better movie, though. Who Framed Roger Rabbit's just more... It's weird. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it's really obvious who the villain is in that movie. But somehow the way they structure it is just a little more interesting than Detective Pikachu. But, I mean, if you're a Pokemon fan, this is, you know, it's great. You get to see all these Pokemon doing all this cool stuff that they don't normally do in the games. It's kind of its own unique thing. And that was the appeal of it to me. If you're a kid, it's cool. I mean, it's like, yeah, it is ultimately a very kid-friendly movie. I'd go see it if I was a kid. There wasn't really, like, yeah. What the hell am I even trying to say anymore? Okay, Pikachu does not say fuck. I don't think anybody says fuck. I don't even think the movie's PG-13, actually. I think it was just PG. I think they could have maybe made it PG-13, but I feel like a PG-13 version of that movie is one that doesn't so closely follow established mystery plot beats and kind of deviates from the norm a little bit more and just has like a little bit more of an interesting plot structure, but they clearly weren't. They were playing it a little safe in that regard, like they wanted it to be as broadly appealing as possible. But there was still clearly a lot of love for the Pokemon franchise and a lot of love for, you know, just the world and the setting and like how to make it feel real and authentic. And that's the biggest issue with video game movies, is most of the time they just feel so hokey and corny that you don't really buy anything that's going on. And this movie is completely rooted in its world, and it's a very convincing world that you believe the whole time through. And so, I mean, if you're into that, if you want to see that, go and see it. If you don't really care about Pokemon and you don't really care about mystery movies and the trailers didn't do anything for you, then the movie's not going to do anything for you. I actually think the trailers... This is the rare case where I think the trailers oversell the movie a little bit. All of the Detective Pikachu trailers are really, really good. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but they all have, like, these great, like... For one thing, the music they use in the trailers is just great. Happy Together, I Need a Hero, but just the way they put it together. Compared to, like, the Sonic movie trailer, where the music in the background stops every 5 seconds for a joke, the way they put together the Detective Pikachu trailers is just so good and so enthralling and really sells, at least it sold me on the movie, enough that I was watching these trailers over and over again. And the movie doesn't quite live up to that sort of, like, high-energy, let's-go thing that the trailer does, but it's still really good on its own right, and there are definitely moments and scenes and parts of it that are that exciting, and the world is just, even when it's not exciting, it's interesting, usually. So I've talked for 20 minutes. That's about my standard review time. I'm going to say arrivederci.